there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Civil War and Love Lies Bleeding, which are two films set in America. They're genre films made by British directors. So, Civil War is directed by Alex Garland and Love Lies Bleeding is directed by Rose Glass. Now, Garland was originally a writer, he wrote novels, then he moved into screenwriting with Danny Boyle, and then he slowly up being a producer and basically being in charge of films he wrote, and then became a director. I mean, the who directed Judge Dredd, or the Dredd film that he wrote, is a bit of a controversy. Some say it was director, some say Garland took over, who knows, but it did have a authorial voice when you saw the film. He made his an initial debut in Ex Machina, which is a film I like but don't love. It's one of those ones that's like, it was raved about so much that I need to rewatch it to see if I was being a bit, hard on it, because it was so, everyone was so in love with it that it became this thing. It was quite annoying. It's a strange one where, people just genuinely loved that film. He then directed Annihilation, which I really liked. Annihilation. Some people don't. It doesn't really have a conclusive ending, but a lot of people had issues with the ending, but a lot of people loved it. It's one of those films that's like, you can be the camp, it's a hard sci-fi movie, but it's also metaphorical, and it's just strange, and again, some people just don't like it, some people do. It's that kind of, one of those kind of movies. But it's still viewed as a good follow-up. He made a TV show, Devs, which I've not seen. Then he made Men, which was a film that was also divisive. I had issues with it. I think I've done a video on it a while ago. I thought it was interesting, but I also thought it was obvious in places. So it had some interesting visuals, but my feeling was it needed another draft before it into production. It just felt like it wasn't quite there yet. It was like, there was lots of stuff that was interesting, but it hadn't quite found its footing in certain areas. I just felt like it was just like a little vague in some places and a bit pedantic in other places. Well, there's also some really good sequences in it. It just felt like it just needed a little bit more work just to finesse certain things. I mean, that's the one of his that I've seen that I've liked least, but I still enjoyed it. I'm still happy to rewatch it. But it's just, and I like that kind of film. It's just that I think I've seen it done better. Then he's come back with Civil War, which he says is going to be his final film as a director, at least for a while, because he's exhausted. Because he's been doing lots of films recently and he's exhausted. So hopefully it'll come back to directing at some point. But I can understand directing's a hard job, so sometimes you need a break. This one I think is one of his stronger films, actually. It's not perfect, but it is really well made. Now, Civil War takes place in America during a civil war. You don't know what they're fighting for, which has been criticised in some cases, because Garland actually made it so that in Texas and California, which are very right and left wing enclaves in America, are fighting together against the Washington, which suggests Washington's gone completely corrupt, and they've put aside their differences to say, look, we cannot have a fascistic regime. But people say it's not specific enough. It's not like a realistic battle thing, because it's trying not to. Because Garland's not going a left wing thing or a right wing thing, saying this side's obviously better or this side's worse. It's like, no, it's a civil war. Civil wars are messy. People make allegiances, and civil wars, if you look at other countries, that cannot last beyond the initial fighting. I mean, if it's a left wing and a right wing thing, it suggests even after this film's over, there's going to be problems later on, which I think is the point. And just in countries, people make partnerships with others they don't like, but they're against something they feel is much more evil that they have to defeat. And the film is about civil war, where the president has been going for like 3 terms. He's basically turning back into a fascistic country that he has total control over. A lot of places have shut down. There's lots of fighting, lots of demonstrations that end in bloodshed. And it's just a sense that America has just gone to rot. The same way other countries have gone to rot. That all the tensions have built up, haven't escaped. Have just become more and more intense. The way countries do before they go into civil war. The feeling there's no escape from this conflict. The only way to get through it is violence. So Garland brings the conflicts going on around the world back to America, and it's about journalists and photographers who are traveling the land, trying to just record what's going on. And it does not suggest that these guys are wonderfully noble in any way. Like, it used to be in some like films, there would be like, oh, it's a noble cause, I'm fighting for a noble cause, I'm a journalist, blah blah blah. I prefer this version where they're cynical and they've got, it's a job, and they have some psychological reasons to do what they're doing. They're not entirely sane. I mean, the journalist is obviously an adrenaline junkie. The photographer obviously has issues and is traumatized, but pushes through. There's a suggestion that everything's just messed up, and there's different levels of journalists and different interests, but they all have their issues, they've all got their problems, they're all projecting what they want onto the world to survive this mess. And they've done it throughout the world as well. It's just like the parasites on a problem. And Garland seemed to be an interesting idea that these people are parasites. They're not curing anything, they're recording it. And the justification is they record it so it doesn't happen elsewhere. But it keeps on happening elsewhere anyway, and it keeps on happening in their own country, and it's like, it's a justification for them to do what they want to do. That's really what it is. And just the story itself is about a war with no real meaning beyond warfare. The warfare has its own meaning of just war. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It just becomes about anger, and it becomes about fighting each other. And it's as brutal and stupid as a fist fight between two people in the back of a pub or something. Ultimately, it gains nothing for anybody. It just causes lots of pain and suffering and lots of starvation. Really, it's just an act of brutality. And every time they go anywhere, the fights they see or the occupations they see is just brutal. It's just people being brutal to each other. And there's no cohesion or reason for anything. Even by the time you get to the end, you know, the final fight is a messy affair, and it's kind of meaningless ultimately. Yes, they win the battle, but like, yeah, everyone knows that this president's going to lose, but it's like, it's caused such a mess. It's like, where do you go from here? And so the characters, you're just seeing that through them. So you see, there's an older journalist as well who's a facial recognised, but you won't know the name. So he's old, and he's covering it because it's his job, but he's like obviously in over his head now because he's just tired and sick of the whole thing. There's a young journalist who tags along with him, a young photographer who idolises the older photographer. The older photographer is played by Kirsten Dunst, who's the best thing in the film. She's really good. She sells a lot of the depression and the anguish of the character, but also being unsentimental and fairly brutal to people at times. The younger photographer is Kaylee Spagney, and she's good as well, but she's less to do because she's playing a young person who's learning. It's that kind of part. She does it really well, but it's a kind of thing where it's a very good performance because it's an actress who knows she does not have the great part in the story. She's just part of the story, but she doesn't have the best parts. One of the best parts. The best parts of the older journalists. But it's an actor learning the craft by being with other good people. Just like a character, basically. Wagner Moura plays the journalist who's the adrenaline junkie. You can recognise him from Narcos, where he played Escobar. And in this one, he's no longer fat like Escobar. He's back down to a kind of sane health level shape. And he's a lot of fun as well. He has less to do than Dunst, but it's because his character is probably a bit more shallow, but he's in it for the buzz, really. I mean, Dunst's character's in it for something else, and she's she's brutal. She's always a killer for the way she shoots stuff and is unsentimental about it. So, which is really enjoyable because a lot of actresses would try and hide how disagreeable their character might be, but she doesn't seem to care. There's just lots of very good performances, and there's great atmosphere of this country pulling itself apart. Now, it's like, if you've got a bias in America, like, has to be one way or the other, or you have a bias about watching America, like, one side right, one side wrong, you may get annoyed because it doesn't take sides. But the whole point is, there's no real sides when it goes to war. It's just survival. And ultimately, civil wars are just messy and disastrous for everybody. So it could have been taking place anywhere. It gets some buzz because it takes place in America, because it makes Americans actually pay attention. And this film did well in America. People were shocked how well it did because it opened bigger than people expect. People thought it was going to be like a political thing that no one might see, but actually people did go and see it. And it is a really enjoyable film. I like it a lot. Some people like it less than me, but it's fine. The other one I'm looking at is Love Lies Bleeding, which is another Brit in America, another Brit genre film. This is Rose Glass, who did St. Maud, which is a terrific film about this young religious woman who is a carer and some of her madness. And I covered it a few years ago. It's a really good film. It's definitely worth seeing. This one is it's very much a director saying, I'm going to do something different now. I've done this, I'm now doing this. So she does this gay film noir set in the 80s in America. And it's very enjoyable. It does have an element of someone's second movie where they may go too far at times. There is an element of that, I can acknowledge. I still really enjoyed the film, but there is an element of it's trying to play around the 80s, the excess of the 80s, the craziness of the 80s, and sometimes it pushes it beyond what some people would like. I kind of enjoy the crazy side of it. It seems very influenced by Repo Man, the Alex Cox movie. And just some of the craziness of those kind of indie directors being in America in the 80s. It has that kind of feel to it. But it's not for everybody. So it's basically Kirsten Stewart as this young woman who helps run a gym in this backwater town. She's still there. She hates her dad, who runs the local gun range, and he's kind of corrupt and shady businessman that he's been investigated by the feds. She's got a sister who's married to this abusive arsehole played by Dave Franco. She's there to try and protect her sister, but it's not really doing anything. But it's also a case of, is she using her sister as an excuse to stay there because she didn't know how to move on? She's having an affair with some women she can't stand, because the options are pretty bleak. And then into this area comes this young woman who's a bodybuilder, and she's gonna play Katie O'Brien, and she's wanting to go to this bodybuilding tournament. She's been preparing for it for ages, and she's really built herself up. And basically, her and Stuart hook up, and basically things develop. The attraction's formed, they hook up, they become a couple. Stuart kind of gets her into drugs a little bit to try and juice herself up for the tournament, and the drugs do not go well because O'Brien makes her paranoid and insane. The wife beating thing goes too far, and all hell breaks loose there. And basically, you get a lot of film noir tropes where people make bad decisions and then have to try and cover them up, and people essentially get crazier and crazier, and the situation is crazier and crazier, and people are forced to see who they are, who they're not, and who other people in their lives are. It's a very good film, but it is very specific. It is over the top. There's a tone to it that is over the top, and if you don't like that tone, slightly campy, but not really very hard-boiled campy thing, you'll not like the film. We can't get that tone. If you like that tone, you'll enjoy it. It is strange, strange film. It gets stranger as it goes on. The thing is, I'm trying to avoid spoiling any of it because you want to know where it goes, but you want to see where it goes. It's not like Civil War, where Civil War you could roughly tell where it was going. Like, you knew the tropes of the genre, and I could tell, like, we're going here now, we're going here now. You could roughly tell where it was going. It was a hard darkness story, really. And this one is a film noir story, so you don't want to tell the twists, what the twists are. There are some funny bits where people make bad decisions and you get to some really funny twisted moments. And there's some ultra violence, there's some very enjoyable stuff going on that's traumatic, but it's funny if you have a sick sense of humour like me. And it's very enjoyable, but it is weird. It's a weird, weird film. It's intentionally weird. It's pushing it. It's like, how far can we push this, and how much can we get away with? And it's that kind of film, which is enjoyable because a lot of directors, when they do the first film, they go to the second film and they try and play it safe a little bit to get that Marvel deal. This is almost like a film that takes the piss out. They're getting that Marvel deal and it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go extreme. Like the director said her thing she showed to everybody was Showgirls, the Paul Verhoeven film, and you do feel she was much more influenced by Verhoeven than she was in other directors. This sense of push it to excess and see what we can do, and let's play with the genre a little bit. And it is, if you like that kind of film, this is going to be up your street. But you might not. I mean, I think it's a case of some people can watch and we go, what the hell am I watching? And other people are like, oh, I get this straight away. I'm one of those, I get this straight away. The weird haircuts, the jackets are very 80s. I mean, there's like a jacket, because Stuart wears, I was thinking, I had a jacket kind of similar to that in the 80s. All the jackets looked the same and they were kind of this weird fashion for men or women. And it didn't change that much. And it was like, yeah, I had a jacket that looked kind of similar to that one. The research is done well. The 80s jackets are perfect. So yeah, I mean, it's a really enjoyable film. If you're a sicko. So yeah, both of these, Brits in America, I would recommend, but both of them you may get annoyed by because they're taking chances. They might not go the conventional route, or they definitely don't. Even though they're both taking a genre and twisting what's there, you know, they are interested in what the directors are interested in rather than what's conventional interesting for a studio. So be aware if you don't like films that go too far, you're probably not going to like these ones. But I did. I enjoyed them. So a recommendation for both. Go see them. That's me for now. Bye.